Good morning, everyone. Lawrence Fleming here. Well, I'm up early from my campsite, and I'm going to be going to church here in a little bit, so I have the right backdrop for me this morning. We're coming up on the Jewish festivals, and so I wanted to talk about that. And let me kind of turn around and get a backdrop of the church here. It's a Baptist church, of course. We're in Georgia. Since we're going to be talking about these feasts, we got to talk about the fact that they've messed with the calendar. Back when the temple was destroyed, the Jewish leaders got together and said, what are we going to do? We can't have temple sacrifices anymore. They've scattered us all over, which they did on purpose. They killed almost 2 million Jews when they came in and destroyed the temple, but they scattered the rest, destroyed the temple so there was no place to worship. So they enacted they wrote down what they called the Oral Torah, which for all practical purposes is their way they think that we should be, or the Jews should be, practicing their religion in the days going forward. Well, Jesus described them correctly when he was alive. He called them whitewashed tombs. They were dead on the inside and prettied up on the outside, but they weren't picking up on what was supposed to be right. They should have recognized Jesus, and they didn't. As a typical Baptist church, we have a cemetery around us. So when they wrote the Oral Torah, they basically had to replace temple sacrifice to prayer, and they had to basically say, your focus of attention instead of the temple would be on the rabbi wherever you're at. Yeah, that's, logical, I guess, from the time being. But what else they put in there is a problem. Some of the writers of this Oral Torah were some of the rabbis, scribes and Pharisees, whoever they were, that were alive and ordered Jesus killed. They hated him because they were destroying their little empire. Religious leaders treat their work as empires and their emperors. Many of them do. I can just point to Rome and say no more. In any case, they wrote into the Oral Torah that they are to avoid Christians at all cost. No Christians are allowed in the temple or to worship anywhere around where they're at. Have nothing to do with anyone who believes in Jesus as the Messiah. They wrote that into their Oral Torah. And that's why the Jews hate Christians today. I was actually going to a synagogue and studying the Bible there. I was actually studying the alphabet, the reading and writing, and I became a Christian. And when I told them about that, they asked me to leave and not to come back. So I've had to deal with it firsthand. Well, one of the other things that they did is they went through and they changed the calendar. They didn't want any events to happen that might coincide with a Christian event. And we're getting ready to celebrate that today. Or this month, excuse me. We're getting ready to can't talk this morning. I've only had 1 cup of coffee. I had to get up and get down here early before everybody got here, and it's been raining all night. All right. They changed the calendar because one of their events that we're going to be celebrating this month is in the wrong time frame. We're celebrating Rosh Hashanah. It's a nice fancy sounding Jewish name. But what it means is head of the year. This is the 7th Jewish month. Is this the head of the year? The only time you can find Rosh Hashanah used in the Bible is in Ezekiel 40, verse 1, when it's talking about the beginning of the year. So what are we doing now? We're celebrating it on a time that has nothing to do with Jesus. Okay, I got people showing up here now, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I'll continue in a little bit, but I'm going to go in and worship God in church. So even if you're camping, you can still worship God. Back in a bit. Hello everybody. I hope you can hear me well enough. I was going to finish my video outside after church. It is raining. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but it's raining. It's hitting my tarp and most of it's going off, but my tent's dry. But it's been raining since church started. I got back in. I had to go get some ice in my cooler. When I got back, there was a slight window, and I ran to my tent, and then it started raining. God was good to me to get me in, but now everybody who's camping, they're basically stuck. I see some of them brought their rain gear, which is good. They're smart. Well, what are you going to do in a park when it's raining? You're going to go for a hike? Well, if you're a good Boy Scout, you might. But most of these are city folk. They don't do that, I don't think. So you kind of hunker down in your tent, which is what I'm doing. There's some thunder in the background. I don't know if you can hear it or not. All right. I'm going to probably have to boost the volume on this, and I'll try to speak up. We're talking about the fall feast, the fall holy times. The two holiest days of the year for the Jewish calendar are Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and those are coming up. Now, I told you about them moving the calendar to avoid this. This is supposed to be the Jewish New Year. The month of Aviv is the first month of the year, back in March, April timeframe. As Christians, what do we celebrate in March and April? Christ. They didn't want to have anything to do with him, so they moved this party month, this party feast. There is supposed to be a Feast of Trumpets. It's not really trumpets, it's Yom Teruah, which means Feast of Shouting. And then they started blowing the shofar because they could make noise with it indefinitely. But this is their new year. They moved the new year to this day so that they could have a reason to shout and to get it away from Christ. So anyhow, I'm going to read a little bit here. I'm reading from a touristisrael.com. It said, Rosh Hashanah in Israel is one of the most special and meaningful times of the year. Happy New Year to those who celebrate. The Jewish New Year is called Rosh Hashanah and usually falls during September or early October. Rosh Hashanah is a 2-day holiday for some, a 1 day for others, knowing of course that all Jewish days start at sunset and go to sunset on the next day. So it really does encompass 2. But if it's a 2-day event, then it's going to encompass 4. See how that works? All right. Businesses across Israel will be closed on both days, so bear this in mind if you're traveling. If you're lucky enough to be over there, I saw on Amir Safati's site that he's taking his tourists around, reading the Beatitudes on the Mount of Beatitudes. That's not bad, huh? All right. I've already covered this. Is going to begin on sundown, and it's treated like a Shabbat, like a Saturday. Okay. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. I don't My nose started twitching. I don't want to do that. Since it's raining, it's obviously very humid. Okay, so for this month, we're in September 27th, 28th, Feast of Trumpets. The Day of Atonement, which is 10 days later, is October 6th and 7th. Remember, their calendars don't match ours. They're on a monthly calendar basis, and like I said, their new year would have been in March, April. We're in the month of Teshri now, so that's different. And it starts off with the new moon, and the new moon is on the 7th of Teshri, which is Tuesday the 27th for 2022. So they lined it up with an existing feast so they could have a reason to celebrate. But what we're going to do is we're going to read out of Numbers I'm going to first read you the reference. I'm in Ezekiel 40. In the 25th year of our captivity, at the beginning of the year, on the 10th of the day of the month, in the 14th year after. Okay, we're going to go back here first. In the beginning of the year. Beginning is Rosh, R-O-S-H-E. The year, Rosh Hashanah. We actually put an extra Rosh in there. Rosh Hashanah is the proper way to pronounce it, but in any case, we say Rosh Hashanah. It sounds more fluid, and it's probably because they made it a plural. I don't know. I have to go back and study the syntax, and I haven't. I just looked at the word out of my Hebrew Bible. Okay, but what we're going to do is we're going to go back to Numbers. Numbers chapter 29, verse 1. And on the 7th month, on the first day of the month, now it starts on the 27th, you shall have a holy convocation. You should do no customary work. This is a repeat for pretty much every one of these feasts and high holidays. You shall offer a burnt offering, and it goes through telling you to do a bull or a ram or the grain offering, and a tenth of each 7 lambs. So it goes through the burnt offering requirements. There's a sweet offering as an offering by fire to the Lord. So this is part of their repentance, their sin offerings. And then on the 10th day of the 7th month, you shall have a holy convocation again. You shall afflict your souls. You shall not do any work. And this is the Day of Atonement. It's defined here, okay? The first of the year should be the first of the month, of the first month, Aviv. They moved it so they could avoid Christ. Okay, so that's where they get their instructions from. When they decided that they wanted to write the Oral Torah, they had to do a little bit of jockeying around. But fortunately for them, most Jews don't know their Bible any more than most Christians know their Bible. Some do, and they have to get in and explain. And there's probably something somewhere in either the Talmud or the Mishnah, which is their equivalent of the Book of Mormon. Yes, they're that bad. They didn't like the Bible, so they had to write their own instructions alongside of it in the Talmud and the Mishnah, and every one of the priests would get in and write his commentary. This is what this meant. When they said this is what this meant. This is what you have to do. People would follow the Talmud and the Mishnah and not even open the Bible. It's like the Book of Mormon. You can't understand being a Mormon if you don't have the Book of Mormon. The Bible is just sort of there. As bad. That's why they didn't recognize Jesus. They were not looking for him. It'd been so long, they just stopped looking. Yet everything is there. Prophetically, everything is there. We've seen the verses. We know the Psalm of the Crucifixion. It's all there. And they didn't recognize him. Even when he told them the verses, they still didn't recognize him. So let's see what we got. I got some more notes. I want to make sure I have everything here covered. Let's see, 2 holidays. I'm reading from cmjisrael.org. There's a number of really good websites if you want to do. Shabbat.org is another good one if you want to just read some of the Jewish calendar events and things like that. Okay, that's the part I've already covered. It talks about it being in Ezekiel. And I've already covered the Oral Torah. You can find that if you want to go to Wikipedia and look up Oral Torah. It talks about it there. And if we're not raptured during the trumpets, I'm still talking about it. Keep an eye out for tabernacles, which is coming up. Okay. So like I said, it's a time for them to celebrate. They picked trumpets to do that so they could be blowing their horns. And normally what they would do is they'd all congregate in the synagogue and someone would blow the shofar, maybe 100 times. So the significance of the last trump is, well, finally that's over because it's loud. And okay, let's go home and celebrate now. They didn't celebrate there. That's what they should have been celebrating. They go home and celebrate. We have enough indications that if this is the last trump, there's a lot of trumpets in between, and we've seen a lot of stuff going on. Have we seen enough? Is this the Feast of Trumpets? It's possible it's next year. But I'm like I said before, I won't bet anything but Monopoly money, but I'll bet $100 that it's this year of Monopoly money. I think that's the yellow. Or is it the gold? I think it's the gold. I think the yellow is the $10. I haven't played Monopoly in ages. We actually studied it in high school as part of our business class. The lesson, own as much property as you can because you're going to make a lot of money. Unless you've got such bad luck you can't do anything. But the average luck, own as much property as you can. Now, that probably doesn't apply today. We had a little brief stop in the rain and it's back again. It's all coming out of the Gulf. It's all over. It's not one great big front. It's just a bunch of little pieces of it. The humidity is so high that it's just wherever it wants to pop up. And it was clear a little bit ago, so this is obviously the rain cloud that was there. It just wasn't visible on the radar. Okay, so keep praying. I went to church today, and his message was, what kind of an influence are you? Are you helping your community? Are you working in church? Not everybody is making music videos. Not everybody is dancing on stage. There are entertainers all around the world that can call themselves entertainers. They find their niche. Well, as Christians, we got to find our niche. Not everybody's making videos. Some people teach Bible studies. This morning, we had an organ player. We had a pastor. We had a praise leader. We had children's ministry, mid-range and young, teenagers and young. We had ushers who collected the tithes. There's all kinds of jobs available. Find one that fits you, fits your personality. Find one that fits what God is telling you to do, and you're telling Him, I don't know how to do that. It's okay. He'll help you. In fact, you'll be better at it if you don't know how to do it. He'll help you get started. We don't have a lot of time if it's coming up, the Feast of Trumpets. Let's see, today is the 4th. Yeah. 3 weeks. It's not a lot of time. Make it your goal to save one soul if you haven't already. Get out there and you can maybe save 21 if you save one a day. Find people to talk to. Tell them, if you don't like the way the world's going, neither do we, and neither does our boss. But we have a plan. Ask them if they have a plan. Okay. Until we meet in the clouds, God bless.